My mother, Linda, forged my signature to sell the apartment my father had given me, funneling everything to her favored child until the truth came crashing down. My name is Emily, and to be honest, my relationship with Linda, now 52, has always been strained. We never really bonded. Things took a sharp turn for the worse after my parents' divorce when I was 9. My dad, Robert, who would have been 58, was a good man, but he reached his limit. Linda constantly berated him about finances, claiming he wasn't providing enough, and it broke him. Eventually, he left. After the split, I lived with my mom, and she quickly painted herself as the victim. She told everyone Robert had deserted us, but that wasn't true. He paid child support, visited when possible, and stayed engaged. Yet, Linda would glance at those checks, sneer, and mutter things like, "This is all your dad thinks you're worth." As a kid, it warped my view of him. I thought he didn't care. Now, looking back, I see he was doing everything he could. The situation worsened when Linda met Greg, a seemingly successful contractor, now 53. They had my half-brother, Ethan, together. From that point, I felt like I vanished in my own home. Linda would prepare lavish dinners for Greg and Ethan, while I was left to fend for myself. Often, I'd come home to an empty fridge. I felt like a ghost in my own house. But the real blow came when I discovered Linda's affair, and it wasn't just a suspicion, it was undeniable. I was 17, nearing high school graduation. I still recall that day vividly. It was a Saturday. I'd been out with friends, but returned earlier than planned, expecting a quiet afternoon. But as soon as I stepped inside, something felt off. The house was eerily still, that unsettling kind of quiet that raises your hackles. I called out, "Mom? Greg?" No answer. Then I heard murmurs from upstairs. At first, I thought Linda was on the phone, but then I caught her laugh, not just any laugh, but the flirty one she used with Greg when they were being affectionate. Except this time, it wasn't Greg. My pulse quickened, but I couldn't stop myself. I tiptoed upstairs, moving silently. The voices grew clearer as I neared her bedroom, and then I heard it, a man's voice, definitely not Greg's. I froze just outside the door. It was slightly ajar, enough for me to peek inside. What I saw turned my stomach. Linda and a stranger were tangled together on the bed, wrapped in sheets, completely at ease. I was floored. My mind couldn't process it at first. They were giggling, acting like it was just another carefree day. I must have made a noise because they both turned toward the door. Linda's face drained of color. She fumbled with the sheets, trying to cover herself, while the man just grinned, unbothered, staring at me like I was the intruder. "Emily, hold on. It's not what you think," Linda stammered. But it was exactly what it looked like. There was no denying it. I couldn't speak. I spun around and bolted downstairs, out the front door, without looking back. My thoughts were a whirlwind, hands shaking, and all I could think was, what did I just see? I wandered the neighborhood for hours, trying to make sense of it. Part of me wanted to storm back, confront her, and tell Greg everything, but another part felt numb, unable to handle the fallout. I didn't go home that night. I stayed at a friend's place, keeping it all to myself. I couldn't say it out loud, it was too much. The next morning I returned, not because I wanted to, but because I had nowhere else to go. It was still my home, technically, and I had to figure out how to survive there knowing what I knew. When I walked in, Linda acted like nothing had happened, bustling in the kitchen as if I hadn't caught her cheating the day before. I didn't speak. I went straight to my room, locked the door, and sat on my bed, staring at the wall. I couldn't see her the same way anymore. Whatever trust one had left for her was gone. After that, I barely spoke to her. We lived under the same roof, but I was a shadow, avoiding her at every turn, only leaving my room when necessary. I couldn't face her again. I didn't have the strength. One thing was certain, I was counting the days until I could leave for good. The problem was I had nowhere to go. Then I remembered something Dad had mentioned years ago, an apartment. He'd said he was setting it up for me after high school. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it, but now it felt like my lifeline. I decided to call him. It was a Friday after school, and I'd been gathering courage all day. My heart raced as I dialed. When he answered, His voice was steady, unaware of the chaos. "Hey, sweetheart, what's up?" I hesitated, unsure how to start. "Dad, I need to talk. It's serious." I took a deep breath. "I want to live with you. I can't stay with Mom anymore." There was a pause, and I braced myself. But when he spoke, it was everything I needed. "Of course, Emily. We'll figure it out. Don't worry." The relief was overwhelming. I'd feared he'd say no or avoid getting involved, but that wasn't Dad. He didn't pry or complicate things. He just agreed, like it was the easiest decision. "I'll come get you tomorrow," he said. "Pack what you need." That night, I stuffed a few bags with essentials. I didn't care about what I left behind, I just needed out. Linda didn't say a word as I packed. She acted like she didn't notice, or maybe she didn't care. I think she'd already written me off. She had Greg and Ethan, I wasn't part of her world anymore. Dad arrived the next day, punctual as always. When I climbed into the car with my bags, he didn't push for details, and I was grateful. He just drove. The silence between us was comforting. When we reached his place, I finally felt like I could breathe. That evening, after I'd settled into my new room, Dad knocked and came in, sitting on the edge of the bed, calm as ever. "I know things have been tough," he said, "but I've been thinking. Remember that apartment I mentioned?" I nodded, unsure where this was going. "I was going to give it to you after graduation, but with everything happening, I think now's the time. You deserve your own space, especially after all this with your mom." I stared, stunned. "You're giving me an apartment?" "Yeah," he said with a small smile. "It's not fancy, but it's yours. You're 17, and I want you to have it. One catch, though, since you're still under your mom's custody, her name has to be on the paperwork for now. But when you turn 18, we'll transfer it to you." I couldn't believe it. It felt like a dream. He'd never let me down, and this was proof. We visited the apartment the next weekend. It was a modest one-bedroom, nothing grand, but perfect for me. It was close to school, so I could finish the year, but far enough from Linda for peace. Walking through it with Dad, I felt like I was on the cusp of something new. There was still the issue of Linda's name on the paperwork, required since I was a minor. But Dad assured me it was temporary. He promised that once I turned 18, the apartment would be fully mine, and I trusted him completely. Things moved fast after that. I split time between Dad's place and the apartment, slowly setting it up. For the first time in years, I felt in control of my life, and it was exhilarating. Linda didn't care, or acted like she didn't. I think she was relieved I was gone, no longer a reminder of her betrayal. She never asked about the apartment or showed any interest. The less we interacted, the better. Living with Dad was a relief. He wasn't overbearing like Linda. He gave me freedom, but was always there when I needed him. We'd have dinner, watch movies, and talk about life, real conversations. During one of those dinners, he brought up the apartment again. "You're doing great, Emily," he said. "If you rent out the apartment when you go to college, it could be a smart move. Extra income could help with tuition." The idea clicked instantly. The apartment was great, but once I moved for college, it wouldn't be practical to live there full-time. Renting it out could cover expenses, especially since college is expensive. I told Dad I'd think about it, but I knew it was a solid plan. What I didn't know was that the apartment would soon spark a new crisis. In that moment, everything felt right. I had a plan, a place of my own, and Dad in my corner. For the first time in years, I felt like I could shape my future. Then everything changed again. A couple of years later, Dad passed away and my world collapsed. Losing him was indescribable. He'd been my rock, the one person I could always count on. When he got sick, it was like a punch to the gut. Cancer doesn't play fair. One day he was fine, the next he was slipping away. I quit my job to care for him without a second thought. I'd have done anything for him. But when he passed, I was shattered. The apartment was now fully mine in my name. That should have brought comfort, knowing I had a home. But I felt adrift. That's when Linda reappeared. We'd barely spoken since I left her house. She knew about the apartment, but never checked on me. After Dad's death, though, she started calling. At first, I hoped maybe she'd changed, that losing Dad had made her reflect. I was grieving, vulnerable, and wanted to believe she cared. At first, it seemed innocent. She'd call to ask how I was, and I didn't share much, but didn't push her away either. I was lonely, and even her small gestures felt like something. But soon, her tone changed. She started mentioning Ethan's college plans and how costly they were. I didn't think much of it, just agreed that college is pricey. But every call began to circle around money, how tough things were, how they were scraping by. I didn't catch on at first. I wasn't looking for it. Then she asked directly, I was wondering if you could help us out. Ethan's tuition is piling up, and I know you're renting the apartment. Maybe you've got some savings. I was floored. I hadn't expected her to ask for money, especially so boldly. I paused, choosing my words. I can't, I said carefully. I'm still reeling from Dad's death. I need to focus on myself. There was a tense silence. She hadn't expected refusal. I get it, she said, her voice clipped. I just thought you'd want to help your brother. I didn't take the bait. After that, her calls became rare and cold. I could sense her resentment, but I was fine with it. I didn't have the energy for her manipulation. But I never imagined what she'd do next. Weeks later, my tenant called in a panic. They'd received an eviction notice. I was baffled. I hadn't issued one or planned to sell the apartment. I called them immediately, and that's when I learned the apartment had been sold, without my knowledge or consent. I thought it was a mistake or scam. I contacted my lawyer, and we dug into the paperwork. That's when the truth hit. Linda, whose name was still on the original documents from when I was a minor, had forged my signature and sold the apartment. I was stunned, furious, and heartbroken. I called her, trembling with rage. What did you do? I yelled. Did you sell my apartment? She was calm, almost dismissive. It's not a big deal, Emily. You weren't using it. Ethan needed the money for school. I was speechless. It wasn't yours to sell. I shouted. Dad gave it to me. She brushed it off. My name was on the paperwork too, she said. I did what was best for the family. That word, family, made my blood boil. This wasn't about family. It was about her using Ethan as an excuse. You have no idea what you've done, I said, voice shaking. She sighed, irritated. It's just money, Emily. You're fine. You didn't need that place. You forged my signature, I said, nearly screaming. That's illegal. It's fraud. Her tone shifted slightly. I'm your mother. I didn't think you'd be so selfish. Selfish. She called me selfish. I've talked to my lawyer, I said, and her confidence vanished. A lawyer, she asked, voice faltering. I'm pressing charges. You committed fraud. You're going to face consequences. Panic crossed her face. Emily, you don't need to do this. We're family. We can work it out. No, I said. You made sure we can't when you forged my name. She was silent. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said, voice breaking. I was just helping Ethan. No, I cut her off. You thought you could get away with it. Not this time. I walked away as she begged me not to go to court. But I was done. Over the next few weeks, I worked with my lawyer to build the case. It was draining, endless documents and calls, but I wasn't backing down. This wasn't just about the apartment. It was about everything she'd taken from me, emotionally and now financially. In the end, I won. The court voided the sale, and Linda was convicted of fraud. She was sentenced to prison. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt hollow. But it was justice. She hadn't just broken the law, she'd broken me. And this time, she faced the consequences. But there was one more truth to reveal. Greg didn't know about the forgery, the sale, or the affair. So I told him everything. I met with him and laid it all bare, the cheating, the lies, the fraud. He was crushed. Within weeks, he filed for divorce, unable to trust the woman he'd loved. Honestly, I think he was relieved to walk away. Linda lost it all, her marriage, her daughter, her freedom. I used the restitution from the apartment to buy a new house, free of any ties. I haven't spoken to Linda since her sentencing and don't plan to. Greg and I check in occasionally. He's rebuilding, like me. Ethan's in college now. We talk sometimes. He had no idea what Linda did. I don't hold it against him. He's moving forward, like the rest of us. And me? I'm finally free. It's not the ending I pictured, but it's the one I've got.